Okay, welcome everybody. Going to call this meeting of the Monroe County Council to order for Tuesday, December 6th. And I'd like to note for the record that we have almost everyone in person. I think we're still expecting to see Councilor Hawk. But we have councilor members Munson, Iverson, Deckard, Crossley, and McKim, as well as myself present. Council member Hawk is currently not in the room with us. Next, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now we have time for public comment on items not on the agenda. I've had at least one person check in with me ahead of time. So if you have not, time is limited to 3 minutes per speaker, but we will allow a little leniency for a presentation from BEDC. Welcome.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Good evening. It's great to see you this evening. My name is Jen Pearl, and I'm the president of the Bloomington Economic Development Corporation, or BEDC. We serve all of Monroe County in convening partners around economic development challenges and needs, as well as supporting the growth of employers to bring quality jobs to the community. And I'm here this evening with an update on the Economic Vitality Project, which you've heard about previously. We've had some great progress the last couple of months. Again, the Economic Vitality Project, or EVP, convenes people across Monroe County to essentially prioritize some of our biggest challenges and opportunities, support existing initiatives, and take new actions to fill in the gaps around things that are facing our community. We focus specifically on workforce, jobs, housing, land use and infrastructure, and quality of life issues. Since I last provided an update to you a number of weeks ago, we've had over 140 community members participate in the initiative personally and directly through committees, focus groups, working groups, and interviews. And our public survey, which went out community-wide, had over 640 responses. And thank you so much for everybody to help promote that and get the word out there. Where we are right now is we have a draft vision statement as well, a vision statement for where we're going as a community, which has been pulled together by, talking to neighbors and leaders and other organizations across the private, public, nonprofit, and educational sectors. Draft vision statement and a set of draft strategies and recommendations that have come forward. And I wanted to share a few updates on those this evening because we thought that they align very nicely with a number of the priorities that County Council and other county leaders have set forth, both through ARPA considerations and other initiatives locally. Before I dive into that, I did want to give you a picture of where we are on the completion of the economic development strategy. By the holidays, we are reconvening our steering committee in person for final feedback on the strategy, the vision statement, et cetera. In January, we're going to be sitting down with local partners who will be leading different aspects of this. This is not something that the BEDC is owning and driving alone, but this is a co-owned, co-developed, co-implemented strategy with community partners together. And then we are planning to unveil the final strategy at our annual meeting, which will be February 15th. And also mark your calendars for that. February 15th is our meeting. So we are looking forward to all that together. In terms of some of the strategies that came out of this, we've honed them down to a set of 15. And the ones that I just wanted to touch on, and I should note that these are still evolving as this steering committee moves through them. The ones that kind of stood out as aligning with county priorities, one was around transit. When we understand that that was something of interest to you all, there was a recommendation to put forth a regional transportation entity that can help serve people across the community. Second is enabling more land to be developed by updating infrastructure, specifically for community needs related to housing and employment growth. A key theme that has come forward is the need to balance these needs against rural preservation. So that's something that's been actively discussed. The BEDC works on an ongoing site-ready inventory and works with partners like the airport, which has land for development, and other landowners across the community to make sure that we're targeting land use to highest and best use for employment, for housing growth, et cetera. Other themes that have come forward, childcare came through loud and clear as a strategy and needing to support that further. Increasing housing development to meet the demand of community goals and quality of life, again, while balancing residents' needs with rural preservation, especially in advancing housing on identified sites in the county that can include the North Park TIF as an example. Diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace was another strategy that was put forward. And trying to find more ways to support our organizations in embedding this in their efforts across the community, as well as advancing community partnerships to promote physical and mental health and social services. Our employers have said loudly and clearly that if we don't have good physical and mental health services, it's not serving our community, it's not serving our workforce or other economic development needs in the community. So those are just some high-level kind of brushstrokes on ways that strategies from the EVP intersect with community priorities coming out of the county. And we very much welcome the chance to sit down and kind of dig into that in greater detail and talk about how we would be able to support county priorities as you're entering the new year. I also just wanted to give a thank you to Councilmember McKim and then also Council Members Crossley, Wiltz, actually everyone up here, because you all have contributed in some way to the EVP, both on the leadership with steering committee, but also just helping to promote it and bring people to the table. And with that, I think that is my update. Very appreciate the time this evening.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that would like to make comment on items not on our agenda? Thanks.
Let's see, Jeff.
If you could let Mr. Shelton have a mic. There we go.
Good evening, Council. Jim Shelton with the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce, but at the moment speaking on behalf of Court-Appointed Special Advocates, or CASAs. Want to let you and the public know that CASA has scheduled their winter training. It's going to run from January 18th to February 8th. There'll be Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And then they're making a dramatic change to try to increase the availability to people, and that is going to be in the mornings. It's going to go from 9 till noon. CASA has really seen a drop in volunteers here in the last 3 years, as well as throughout the whole state. And we figure, of course, this is due to COVID and fears from that and the aftermath of it and people drawing back. But unfortunately, the number of cases that we're getting are still coming. So right now we've got somewhere in the 20s, it was 21 a week ago, children waiting for a volunteer, and we have no one to assign to help them. CASA's job is to support the child or children who are in the court system because their parents have abused or neglected them. So your job as a CASA is to advocate for those children, to let the court know what you as an independent volunteer think would be the best thing to help them, whether it be reunification or adoption, guardianship, or whatever. And the court really depends on the CASA to, as an unbiased entity that is not part of a bureaucracy that gets different guidance depending on who's the governor or who's the head of it statewide, to help them know the best thing to do to help the children. So for folks who might be interested at all to learn more about it, you can go to monroecountycasa.org, click on the volunteer link, and you'll find an orientation and training page, as well as some frequently asked questions answered. that'll help you know the details of working with this. Or you can call 333-2272 and talk to a staff member. They'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. So I invite the public to please consider this. Applications would be the first step. You can do those online at the CASA website, or you can download them and fill them out and mail them in. But they'll be due toward the end of the calendar year, so that there'll be time to be interviewed, do a background check on you, and get you started in the training on the 18th. Thank you for the opportunity to spread the word.
Thank you, Mr. Shelton. Are there any other members of the public who would like to make comment this time? All right. We will move to adoption of the agenda, but I'd like the record to show that Councillor Hawk has joined us. Does anyone wish to add or remove an item from our agenda this evening? No, everybody's thrilled with our agenda. That's fantastic. Then we will move to department updates. Yes.
I would like to introduce Teresa Shipley. She's over here. She is the new council administrative assistant. She comes to us from MCCSC, and she's already a great asset to both of our departments. So please welcome her.
Fantastic. Welcome.
Welcome.
Look forward to working with you. Do we have any other departments wishing to make an update? Right. Let's move to then council liaison updates. Are there any updates from council members? Yes, Mr. Iverson.
Thank you. I have two really exciting and positive updates. The first is from the Environmental Commission. As of today, Monroe County has officially been accepted as a part of the 2023 Climate Resilience Planning Cohort through the Environmental Resilience Institute. And we have been selected through a competitive process to also host a McKinney Climate Fellow. So this is really going to enhance the work that we've already been doing to not only be resilient to climate change, but also adapt to it. And I would just point out that advertisements for this climate fellow will be posted soon. And so any Indiana University student is eligible for that. The second piece of good news that I bring is from the Convention and Visitors Center. You can find the latest updates from our innkeepers' tax revenues on the County Council's website, but we have had just a remarkable fall. There have been so many positives coming out of our tourism industry, and Monroe County continues to be a leader in Indiana in terms of being a destination. Demand is through the roof, and not just in terms of hotel rooms, but also in terms of attendance at the convention center, and as well as other measures. So I really encourage all of you to go back and watch the CVC meeting. It's just really positive how many people are coming to Monroe County to really enjoy the lifestyle that we've built, and really encouraging that the BEDC is here today to talk about quality of life, among other things. Just a real quick note, the handmade market at our convention center was the largest event we have ever had. Over 7,000 people came, and it's just one more piece of evidence that shows that convention centers are back and it's time to expand the convention center.
Great, thank you. Are there any other council updates? All right, then we will move to item number 7 from our recorder's office.
Council, I move to approve ordinance 2022-49, an ordinance approving the recorder's sworn affidavit regarding use of the recorder's perpetuation fund for office expenses. Second.
And we have our recorder, Eric Schmitz, here to talk to us.
Good evening. Thank you, council members. I don't normally give a presentation for this. But I thought, it's my last chance to do that. And basically just give you an update of what we've been doing this year with the perpetuation fund. The cash balance, by the way, is about $1.52 million. So as far as reserves and revenues go, it is, as they say in the business, flush. The big thing that we've done this year has been that we have had all of our deeds and miscellaneous records scanned in mass. Company US Imaging came on site back in the spring. They were set up here for 2 weeks and maybe a couple of days, and they got through every single one of those books, which is kind of amazing. I moved 157 books from the History Center, big deed books from the History Center over here and then back again so that they could be scanned, which meant that I didn't have to go to the gym that week. Anyway, that's the main thing. There will be nothing foreseeable in 2023 that would be out of the ordinary, that would be a non-statutory use for the fund. The scanning project, that kind of thing, which it is ongoing. That is exactly what the perpetuation fund is for. So I thought I would give the council and the members of the public who are watching an idea of what these user fees are being used to do.
Fantastic. Thank you. Are there any questions from council?
Not really a question. I just want to congratulate you on conclusion of 2 very successful terms as a recorder.
Thank you so much. It's
I wish you weren't statutorily prohibited for running again, but
yeah, it's Constitution. So yeah.
Mhm. Other comments, questions?
I just want to echo that. I remember when the recorder went into office, and it's kind of a bittersweet moment here on the 6th of December to see it as you go out. Thank you, Mr. Recorder.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for your service. I remember we campaigned together, I think, last time around. And,
Oh, yes.
I remember that fondly.
Yes. Oh,
So-
likewise.
So,
Oh.
congratulations on a job well done, and
Thank you.
thanks for giving us an update. Is there any public comment on the ordinance that we're about to approve? Okay, seeing none, could I have a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Thank you. Now we have item number 8 from our legal department. I'm going to open the public hearing for the Oliver Winery tax abatement. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. And I'll go ahead and do that and allow public comment unless you'd like to introduce anything further.
I think it might not hurt for the public to hear kind of a brief introduction, and then they can go forth. I'll keep it pretty brief. This came before the county council last month as a preliminary approval pursuant to, and this is for a personal property tax abatement for the Oliver Winery expansion project. This is a request for a tax abatement for personal property only. It's for a 7-year period, and they're requesting 100% of the amount of personal property tax to be abated. I'll talk about that more after the public hearing, but and so this is kind of the second we've given notice. We've had the related documents available in the assessor's office. And so this is to allow people to come in and tell you what they think about the request.
Great, thank you. So with that, are there any comments from the public regarding this tax abatement? If you're here in the room, you're welcome to come up to the podium. Online, raise your hand. And I see we do have someone online, so we'll go ahead and hear from Mr. Shelton.
Good evening again, Council. Yes, Jim Shelton with the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce. We urge you to support this as we did when it came up a month ago. And as we said then, Oliver Winery has been a wonderful corporate citizen here, provide a lot of jobs to a lot of people, and we encourage you to encourage them to grow. As they explained, they have the opportunity to grow in some other places too, and we want them to have their growth be here and have them continue to be great corporate citizens. So please approve this.
Thank you. Are there other public comments? Go ahead. Come on up.
Good evening, Council. My name is Clark Reiner. I'm the Business Development Director for the Bloomington Economic Development Corporation. First, I'd like to thank you for taking time to consider this tax abatement request. And then I'd also like to thank John Black, the CFO, who is on the line now listening. I'm here to express support on behalf of the BEDC for the proposed personal property tax abatement for Oliver Wine Company. As you know, Oliver Wine Company is a world-class maker of fine wines here in our community. They intend to expand and add new state-of-the-art equipment if the abatement is granted. They are a wonderful organization, have been part of our community for 50 plus years, and they just have so much passion for the community. They are considered one of the largest wineries in the US right now, I think ranking about 28. And as a result of that, they are also considered by Travel and Leisure a top 25 winery to visit in the US back in 2017. And in early 2021, they developed a relationship with Next Phase Capital to help them continue to scale up for future growth. And that is always a great sign. So, and then in October of 2022, Oliver Winery was named an Impact Blue Chip brand by the publisher of Wine Spectator magazine. And it's an award given to the best performing major players in the wine industry over the long term. So they are committed to that. They're also committed to the community. They constantly invest back into our community through donations that they make to the American Cancer Society, Hoosier Hill Food Bank, New Hope for Family, local Rotary clubs, and many, many others. So I would just, again, encourage your support for this abatement. So thank you for your time and all that it considers.
Thank you. Other public comment? I see nobody online, and it does not look like anyone in the room either. So the public hearing for the Oliver Winery tax abatement is now closed. And Councilor Deckard, if you could continue.
Council, I move to approve resolution 2022-26B, approval of a tax abatement for Oliver Winery Company Incorporated. Whereas notice was published of the passage of part 1 of this resolution and objectors were requested to appear before the council. And whereas the county council has reviewed all such objections, now therefore the Monroe County Council affirms its decision made in part 1 of resolution 2022-26A. This affirmation is subject to an executed memorandum of understanding between the company and county. The county council authorizes its president to execute a memorandum of understanding. This resolution shall be subject to provisions of Indiana Code 6-1.1-12.1 et al., presented to the County Council of Monroe County, Indiana, read in full, and adopted on the 6th day of December 2022.
Second.
And now we have Jeff Cockrell again to tell us some more things.
And I'll just say a couple of things. I think we had a pretty long, in-depth conversation last month. I would say that John Black and I think Jay Walters are on the call in case you have any questions. Just remind you that they currently have 63 employees. Their application indicated that this would add another 21 employees to that. And their average starting wage is over $21 an hour. If you include benefits, it's closer to $30 per hour for the employees. At last month's meeting, we talked a lot about the difference between a 7-year 100% personal property tax abatement versus for what their original request was, which was a standard tax abatement for 10 years for both real and personal property. I think you should have gotten a copy of kind of a real simplified spreadsheet, which show that the difference that they're paying is they're actually going to be paying $125,341 more based upon those estimates. As you all know, our tax rates change all the time, and that could be affected that way. But I thought that you guys had requested that information. And so if you want, I think Kim Shell can put that on the screen if you wish.
You have that?
So for the public's viewing, it's fairly self-explanatory. But I'm more than happy to answer questions. Again, we have some company representatives that could answer questions if you have any.
Seems very straightforward. Are there any questions or comments from council? Councilor Everson.
My only comment is that I was talking about this very issue to some of the constituents in the first district, only to have them turn out to be all of our state club members. And they were just glowing about the benefits that they receive and how wonderful the winery is. So they convinced me. Not that I needed convincing, but they're very happy.
Councilor McKim.
Just that I spent Thanksgiving weekend in Cincinnati dealing with some family issues, but I did go out grocery shopping at one point, and the first thing I saw with the person in front of me was a whole case of Oliver wine, and I just felt very proud, and I was really glad to see our iconic Bloomington product exported throughout at least out throughout the Midwest. So very glad to see that.
Councilor Crossley and then Councilor Hawk. Now.
I think Jen was first. Yeah.
So I just had one quick question because not to address the elephant that's happening in the city right now. In terms of what happened with Catalina. I know we're different, but in some regards, maybe not. But in terms of, you said adding 21 more jobs, how long, like what's the time span of that?
They indicated that those jobs will be added in between the next 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
And just so you know, that information we reference the memorandum of understanding. That information gets placed in the memorandum of understanding that the county council president signs, as well as the business company sign, business representative signs, so that everybody knows what we're talking about and what that means.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I just wanted to add that no matter what the season is, when my family comes to visit, they always want to go to Oliver's Winery, whether it's springtime to see the flowers coming up, or especially now at Christmas time with everything lit up so beautifully. And of course, the Pinot Grigio is my daughter's favorite, so that doesn't hurt either. But it really makes a difference for the community. When people recognize that's where they want to go for something special, when they come in town for a weekend or something, they want to make sure they make a stop at Oliver's. So I think it's a great tourist attraction. And I haven't yet to meet anyone who didn't seem to be happy to be working there. So.
Other comments, Councilor Decker.
Thank you very much. I just want to make a quick comment. I'm going to vote for this, and of course I support it and want always business to do well here and to grow here. And I'll make this comment as a child of a family where an employer left the community, and it had serious effects on my family and many others. And I say this not to say, well, you know, this will happen here, can happen here. I say this to folks listening, both at Oliver and BEDC representatives. We don't want you to ever leave. And we want you to continue to always do business in this this community. That's very important that we take care of our people. And this action of this council is our half of that commitment. And so we want you to stay here, grow, prosper as you go, so we go. And so I want to say that on the record so that that's always in our minds, both on the public end and the private end of these things. These actions have consequences. This action today has consequence. We want that to always be forefront in our heads. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes.
I go back with the Oliver Company to 1971. And I will support this. And I want to thank the Oliver family and the company for being welcoming and gracious members of our community. We appreciate you.
Thank you. I see no other comments, so let's see if there's any public comments with regards to our vote. Last chance. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Thank you.
Thanks. Now we're at item 9 on the agenda from the Solid Waste Management District.
Council, I move to approve the Monroe County Solid Waste Management District's request for an additional appropriation in Fund 82830000 debt service of $400 in the capital category. Second.
Welcome, Mr. McGlasson.
Deja vu, anyone? And I apologize. We did this exact same additional appropriation a couple of months ago. In my rush to get that done and off of my desk, I failed to fully review the expenses out of that fund for the year and missed that last year's fund was actually not paid until January of this year. So that put the this year's budget back down at $400 again. So we're here asking for that additional appropriation so we can make sure that budget on the expense side is balanced at the end of the year. For the record, just would note that the estimated balance for the debt service fund after the December tax disbursement will be $158,682. The next payment out of that fund is due February the 1st in an amount of $153,185. So the funds are there to cover the next payment after the appropriation is made. And then obviously we have the June disbursement to cover the next payment in August.
Okay, great. Are there any questions or comments to my right? To my left? No. And we do have this, Mr. McGlasson, in your 2023 budget.
Yes, the agency fee is included in the 2023 budget, and we should not have to do this again next year.
Excellent.
One sort.
We love seeing you. I don't, but it's good to have things on line. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment on this item? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're now at item 10 from our prosecutor.
Council, I move to approve the prosecutor's request for an additional appropriation in Fund 81219623 VOCA grant of $129,002.43 in the personnel category. Second.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for hearing us this evening. I'm Beth Hamlin from the prosecutor's office. This is a request to appropriate our VOCA grant funding. This is a 2-year award. The $129,000 will cover 2 years. The grant covers funding from 10/1/22 to 9/30 of 24. It pays a portion of salary for 4 victim assistant positions, and the match is currently waived by ICJI on this grant. So there's no match on this one.
All right. Any questions or comments for Ms. Hamlin? Yes.
Actually, could you just tell the public what these positions do?
Well, a lot of what they do is statutorily mandated. They are required to notify victims of certain crimes and victims of any crime that wish to be updated about hearings as they're coming up. They assist in accessing restitution if it's applicable. They assist in accessing funding through the state from the Victim Crime Compensation Fund, which is a state fund that helps make people whole after a crime is committed. And they assist in the court often if the victim needs someone with them in court to basically sort of explain the process, make sure that victims of crime are comfortable with the process or as comfortable as they can be with the process. Those are probably the biggest.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council? All right. Are there any public comments on the item? Seeing none, then we will have a roll call vote.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Now we have item B.
Council, I move to approve the prosecutor's request for an additional appropriation in Fund 8123-9623 stop grant of $102,868.30 in the personnel category.
Second.
And we have Ms.
Thank
Hamlin.
you. This is another grant that we received through ICJI, the Indiana Criminal Justice Institute. This funding is for a 1-year period, October 1st of 2022 through September 30th of 2023. It pays half of the salary and half of most of the benefits for a specialist deputy prosecuting attorney, one of whom specializes in domestic violence cases and the other specializes in sex crimes. It also pays for a part-time assistant, which forms our special victims unit. There is a match required on this of $34,636, and that is paid by way of balance of salary and benefits for these positions.
Okay. Question, yes, go ahead, Counselor Hawk.
Yes, I noticed that you did alert us that you do not have the approval as yet.
Yeah, Indiana Criminal Justice Institute has had a lot of turnover, and it's taking them, they've also changed their process of contract signature. We have received an award letter, and the VOCA process, we did receive the grant agreement, and it's in the signature process now. That's why I'm a little late coming to you this year with these, because I usually like to have that award letter in hand, but I did want to get them appropriated. I'm confident, we've received notice that we'll receive the funds. And I wanted to get them appropriated in the year that they were awarded.
Well, I noticed that you said that if the council wishes to make this appropriation contingent on the receipt of the award letter and or grant agreement, your department would not object. Is that what
I put that? Yes, I did say that. We have received this grant for many years. In this format for probably 5 or 6 years. I'm confident that we will receive it. However, I did want to be transparent that we don't have the grant agreement in hand, and I wanted to be clear about that.
Well, I don't think it would delay anything if we made it contingent to that. And the minute you get it, then you notify the auditor's office or whomever, and it'll just move forward. So that's probably the most prudent way to do it.
I agree. Is that a motion to amend?
Well, I mean, it would be just be a friendly amendment here to do as the prosecutor's office has suggested, that we make it contingent upon their receiving the award letter and or grant agreement.
Just take that as a motion.
Okay,
And I second.
okay, great. And could we, are there any comments on the motion?
Yeah.
I think it's.
Can I ask to just confirm with the auditor's office that that won't cause them any bookkeeping issues? This grant fund does roll over. The way we process it, though, is we pay it out of one fund and then we repost it when we receive the funds, the drawdown in the grant. So I just want to make sure that the auditor's office doesn't have any objection.
It should be okay on our end. Thank you.
Okay.
Great. All right, so we have the amendment and could we have a roll call vote, please?
Everyone's present. You can do a voice vote.
Got it. All right, could I have a voice vote? Everyone in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. And so we're back to the original with amendment. Are there any other questions or comments from council members? Is there any public comment on this item? All right, so then we should have a roll call vote.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
motion passed unanimous.
Thank you.
That brings us to item 11 from our probation department.
I will be combining items 11A1 through 4 into one motion as they share similar or same funding source. Council, I move to approve the probation department's request for additional appropriations in the following funds. Fund 91410000 Community Corrections Grant, $1,049,167 in the personnel category. Fund 91470000 Drug Court Grant, $157,711 in the personnel category. Fund 91490000 Mental Health Court Grant, $49,376 in the personnel category. Fund 91570000 Pretrial Services Grant, $271,866 in the personnel category for a total of $1,528,120.
Second.
Thank you for all of that. That's great. And welcome.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Linda Brady, the Chief Probation Officer for the Monroe Circuit Court. You are going to be hearing about a lot of grants for the probation department tonight. The probation department is funded a lot with grants. We have roughly 22 budgets for the department, and the department is funded about 30% by grants. Some of the grants you're going to be hearing tonight, especially from Community Corrections, the Indiana Department of Correction, those are the biggest grants that we receive. So you're going to hear more detail from our Community Corrections Executive Director and Deputy Chief Probation Officer Becca Strite. So take it away, Becca.
Good evening. So this is, like Linda said, this is one of our largest grants for the department. This is actually the 39th year that we're receiving community corrections funding from the Department of Correction. It funds several programs. Let me take that back. It funds salary and benefits for staff for several of our programs, including our home detention electronic monitoring, our day reporting, pretrial, drug court, and mental health court programs. It also supports an exciting position that we have in our department, the evidence-based practices coordinator position. Evidence-based practices is the foundation to absolutely everything that we do in our department when we work with our clients. We provide evidence-based practices practices, not only for the benefit of the clients, but also for the community and their safety. All our probation officers, our field officers, our support staff are all trained in evidence-based practices at some level. And they work incredibly hard to apply those skills and those things that they have learned with their clients. And evidence-based practices doesn't just end once the client leaves. We work tirelessly to do training after training after training and practice those skills because we know that we can do more harm if we're not applying evidence-based practices correctly. The other thing I wanted to highlight about this year is in October, the Department of Correction, well, a month before October, the Department of Correction contacted our office and asked if we would serve as a training site for all of their staff to conduct an assessment of our program. All counties that have a community corrections program will be assessed at some point, but they know that we are so in depth with our evidence-based practice mission that they wanted to use us as a training facility, a training site. So they came out for a day, worked, they interviewed all our staff, they observed client appointments, they went through some of our cases. We're still waiting on the assessment results, but it was an honor to be asked to be a training facility or a training site, knowing that what they did with us would reach out and affect other counties. Real quickly, just some other highlights about some of our programs. One of the grants that you're hopefully approving this evening is Drug Court, began in 1999. We've had 514 graduates as of last week. And Mental Health Court began in 2014. This court works intensely to provide services to those with severe mental illness. This program keeps those participants in the community rather than incarcerated so that services aren't interrupted like medication and therapies. And as of last week, they had their 23rd graduate. And then our pretrial program, as I'm sure you've heard me say before, started in 2016 as a pilot site. We were one of 11. We've obviously moved out of the pilot phase. Pretrial, the three priorities: maximize release from jail for those who can be successfully supervised in the community, maximize the ability for clients to show up for court, and maximize community safety. We do this by conducting a pretrial validated risk assessment on all defendants who are booked into the jail. And we provide this information to the court so that the court can make determination if somebody can be released, and if so, on what conditions, without the requirement that that defendant pay a bond, a cash bond. And we have assessed approximately since 2016 over 10,000 defendants, which is quite amazing with a staff of 4 or 5 pretrial officers. So I think that takes care of those grants for now.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions or comments to my right? Yes.
Yes, I can imagine you've been pretty busy because I watch the jail bookings. And I see the same people over and over and over again. And it just is amazing to me that they can be arrested and seems like they're right back out on the street before, you know, they have a chance to get any kind of counseling or treatment within the jail system. We used to have that available in the jail system. And we don't have what we had just a year or 2 years ago. And so I know that you really don't have any control over that. That's up to the judges, the courts, they'll decide. But it just seems to me it makes little sense to just keep putting the same people out there that's going to commit the same kind of crime over and over again. I don't see how that's good for them. I don't think it's good for the community. And, you know, if they were someplace where they were safe and they could be getting some kind of treatment toward living a better life, seems to me that would be a lot better. I know that's not it's something that you can do, but it was my opportunity to say so. And I just feel compelled to do that because there's, I know when you work so closely with it, you probably just don't even hear the community saying, we're concerned, we're worried, we don't feel safe. Our businesses don't feel safe. And so I thank you for doing what you can because it's a big job And it seems to me it must be getting bigger all the time.
Absolutely.
Council McKim.
Thanks. Actually, my question is a procedural one. The agenda refers to additional appropriations and simultaneous amendment of the salary ordinance. Is that coming up as a subsequent motion, or do we need to handle that? So I don't,
We need to.
the script didn't include that.
That's my fault. It should include salary ordinance amendments because these need to be forwarded into the 2023.
Okay, council, I move we amend the motion to include the associated salary ordinance amendments to the 2023 salary ordinance.
Second.
It's quite popular.
Is there any comment on the amendment? Seeing none, then we have a voice vote on the amendment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. And we go back to the newly amended original motion. Are there comments on my left? Yes, Councilor Iverson.
I want to congratulate you on all of the grants that you've won. This is fantastic. I really support all the evidence-based work that's coming out of your department. You're just doing an amazing job. I especially love, I recently received a mouse pad with the words, it might be the acronym might be the words. I don't really. Yeah. It's a good reminder how important that is. And obviously in the criminal, the community justice reform committee, we talk a lot about recidivism, and this directly impacts it. The work that you're doing and this grant directly impacts that work. And it's so important to what we're talking about as a community. And I'm so glad that you're able to be here today. And I really quick wanted to highlight a letter to the editor that came out on Sunday, November 27th. It was written by a series of researchers that you're working with, among them Miriam Northcutt-Bomert and Eric Brahman and some others. And it really points to the evidence that we are not seeing crime after crime after crime, that this is not a dangerous community where there's just crime rampant. And if you look at the evidence, what we're finding is that violations occur primarily for missed probation appointments and substance use. These are things that you all are working on. You're capable of working on them and you're doing a great job. So I really appreciate the evidence-based work that you're doing.
Any other comments or questions? My left? No, anything? Okay. Any public comment on these items, this bundled item? Jim Shelton has his hand raised.
Well, good evening again, Council. Jim Shelton speaking as a CASA. I obviously encourage you to approve this. I just kind of want to put a person's face, if you will, on one of these programs. Just a year ago, we celebrated in Judge Galvin's court the reunification of a little guy who I think is 5 now with his mom and dad. They had both been addicted and had been through the struggles of trying to deal with that. And the dad, the mom primarily had to deal with it in Texas, but the dad dealt with it here, and drug court was really good influence for him. Judge Dekoff held him accountable. He learned how to deal with it, and they were reunited a year ago. The little guy's about to have a sibling here sometime this month, and the family is doing great. And these kinds of programs have real implications to real people in our community. And I applaud the probation department and all they do, and then the Board of Judges, et cetera, to work with the people who need the kind of help that these programs give them. So please approve this, and congratulations to the probation department, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shelton. Councilor Hook?
I just wanted to comment about the drug court grant. For those of us who've been around here forever, we know that Judge Todd was very involved in that. And at one time, we had a group of people that met at the convention center. I met this person at Ball State. She said, well, yes, she'd be happy to come and meet with some of my friends. There was like 250 people there or something to learn how to write grants. And someone from your department, and I wish I could remember her name. She attended that course. Exactly, didn't hear.
Susan Allen, Linda is saying.
Okay, so anyway, she wrote that, and it was the first time she'd written a grant, and she got it approved, and so that kickstarted this. And so, I mean, congratulations to, you know, that's the way we work as Monroe County to learn and grow and make a difference. Judge Todd would be very happy about that.
I'm sure you're correct. Okay, we had public comment. Any more public comment? And seeing none, then could we have a roll call vote, please?
For clarification, this is a roll call on the amendment, which also includes the addition of the 2023 salary ordinance. Counselor Munson.
Yes.
Counselor McKim.
Yes.
Counselor Crossley.
Yes.
Counselor Iverson.
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz.
Yes.
Counselor Hawk.
Yes.
Counselor Decker.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Thank you. And item B, please.
Council, I move to approve the probation department's request for additional appropriations in Fund 1123-9623 Community Transition Program of 15,000 in the supplies category, 30,000 in the services category, and 5,000 in the capital category for a total of 50,000. And I simultaneously move to amend the 2023 salary ordinance.
Second, although there are no personnel in this appropriation.
It's 1123-9623.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah. All right, council, I move to amend my previous motion to strike language related to amend the 2023 salary ordinance.
Okay, so I'll second the motion for the appropriation only.
Got it. That makes sense. Are there any comments or questions? Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. This is not a grant. The rest are. This is a statutory program in Indiana. The Community Transition Program allows the court to modify a person who is serving a sentence in the Department of Correction for a felony to be modified out back to our community earlier than their term of their sentence. This is a way to reintegrate those individuals back into our community with that little bit of extra support. Typically, individuals get placed on home detention and participate on our day reporting program, anywhere between 60 to 180 days. Some of them are also accepted into Judge Dekoff's reentry program through this mechanism. The Department of Correction actually reimburses community corrections programs $25 a day per individual who is in the community transition program. And so the past couple of years, we have kind of just let this fund sit because we weren't accepting that many clients. And we realized the clients that we were turning down based on our criteria were the ones that really needed the extra support. Our criteria was just really strict. So we actually upped the number of acceptances that we are taking into community transition program. And now we have some money in that fund and we can use that pretty much for supplies, fuel, electronic monitoring, drug testing services through community corrections.
Great. Now, do we have, go ahead, Counselor Hawk.
Yes, can you tell me the individuals that are being assigned to this, are they originally from Monroe County or are they sending us others?
No, they have to be a resident of Monroe County, either at the time of the offense or upon release. If they are a resident at the time of offense, but they no longer have a residence here, they are required to find a residence before we can accept them back into the community transition program. So if they were a resident here in Monroe County, but then maybe they've lost now their housing because they've been incarcerated, but they intend to
put their roots back down here when they're released, we'll work with them to try to help them find a residence so that they can do their home detention.
So, but they could be coming from another city or something and say they want to move here. And then if they can find, tell me if I'm misunderstanding. And if they can find housing here and establish that, then they are now Monroe County resident, you would be working with them?
They have to be, so in our criteria states that they have to either be a Monroe County resident now. So maybe they have when they were arrested and then they went to the Department of Correction, maybe they still have family here, maybe they even still have a house here, we would accept them. Or if at the time of their offense, they committed the offense here in Monroe County and they were a resident, but let's say because of incarceration, they have now lost their housing, but they still are a resident here or want to be, we will accept them. We will not take any cases or clients from another community, let's say. So if somebody lives, there's lots of examples that I could give, but no, they have to be a Monroe County resident or intend to continue to be a resident.
Thank you.
Are there other questions or comments to my right? To my left? Councilor Iverson.
Yeah, Ms. Straight, you had mentioned that you had done an evaluation and realized that some of the people that might be part of the program, you had to reassess your criteria and you upped the number. What is the number of people per year that are taking part in this program?
So pre-COVID, it was about 10 a year. I don't have the final numbers for this year, but last year it was about 30. And that was right around when we redid our criteria. And I want to believe that it's probably the same this year.
Okay, so and you expect that to hold kind of level in 2023, ballparking it around 30?
Yes, and keep in mind, we only provide the court with the criteria if the person does or does not meet the program. The judge is the one that still has to sign off on if the defendant is going to be modified or not.
Sure.
But we make the recommendation.
Yeah, it's helpful to know that it's not 100 people.
No.
And it's not 2 people.
No.
Yeah, thank you.
Questions or comments? Other questions or comments? No? Okay, is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
motion passed unanimous.
Thank you. Item C, please.
Council, I move to approve the probation department's request for additional appropriations in Fund 49249621 probation cares grant of $1,872.10 in the supplies category and $1,727.62 in the services category for a total of $3,599.72.
Second.
So this is a grant that we come to you every year with. This grant is through the Monroe County CARES, which is a statewide program, but we of course apply for funds through our county. Every year, drug court program does apply for a grant to help fund or pay for some of their drug testing supplies. Problem-solving court participants are drug tested a lot, so we go through those supplies pretty quickly. And then this year, Community Corrections applied for funding for what we call interactive journals. This is an evidence-based program proven through research to help clients change the way that they think. And these are really just colorful journal workbooks on different topics that our probation officers select specifically to meet the needs of specific individuals. And they work on these workbooks for sometimes up to 4, 5, 6 appointments.
Great. Are there any questions or comments to my right? No? Yes.
We just heard from another department, and I believe Monroe County Cares comes from the Indiana Criminal Justice Institute as well. Their funding comes from that state department. Have you received the funding for this? Is there any backlog in the funding for this grant?
We have the, yeah.
It's all good. Okay.
Yeah, yep.
All
It's been
right, thank you.
approved and granted.
Wonderful. Good to hear.
Any other,
I don't believe that's a ICGAI grant.
Yeah, I was. Okay.
other comments or questions? Public comment? Roll call vote. Please.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Munson.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Thank you. I believe we're at item D now.
Council, I move to approve the probation department's request for additional appropriations in Fund 9135-0000 pretrial program grant of $96,480 in the personnel category and simultaneously move to amend the 2023 salary ordinance.
Second.
Great. So this is another partner to our pretrial grant. This one comes from the Indiana Office of Court Services. We have been receiving this grant ever since 2016 when we were a pilot project or pilot program. Part of this grant funds funds one probation officer who is part of the pretrial program. This grant also funds our probation officer assistants who help us with data entry. Data in pretrial is it's so extensive, so we have some help with that. And then this grant also helps partially fund a public defender position. When we originally got this grant, for a couple of years, the grant fully funded that public defender. A requirement of being a certified pretrial site is that we have meaningful initial hearings so that judges can determine release. And part of that meaningful appearance is having a defense present to help defendants navigate that. I believe it was last year that the Office of Court Services cut that funding because there's a lot more sites now that have pretrial programs, and the area that they cut was that public defender. So this funds part of that in partnership with the Public Defender's Office.
Are there any questions or comments to my right? To my left? All right. Public comment on this item? And seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yeah.
Counselor Crossley.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
And then we have item E.
Council, I move to approve the probation department's request for additional appropriations in Fund 9155-0000 Veterans Court Grant of $71,903 in the personnel category and simultaneously move to amend the 2023 salary ordinance.
Second.
All right, this is our Veterans Court Grant, also funded by the Indiana Office of Court Services. Our Veterans Court is one of our 4 problem-solving courts. Participants are all military veterans, and the services that are provided are very specific to their needs. This is the 7th year of this program, and as of last week, we've had 23 graduates. It has a smaller population or participant population just because of the specific criteria that's required to be in the program.
Great. Any council comment or question to my right? My left? All right, public comment on this item. Seeing none, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Munson.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Thank you. And I'm going to let Linda Brady do the last one. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're at item 10.
Council, I move to approve the probation department's request for additional appropriations in Fund 91630000 JDAI Performance Grant of $4,070 in the supplies category and $96,625 in the services category for a total of $99,695.
Second.
Okay, back again. This grant is a bonus grant, and it's actually a reward that is given by the Indiana Department of Correction to JDAI, which is Juvenile Detention Alternatives Initiatives, programs in the state that are what they call high functioning or that have achieved a lot of goals. So we received this for the first time last year, $95,000, which is quite a lot of money for an award. And last year, we used it for quite a few things, but one of the main things we used it for was a partnership with CCLP, which is the Center for Children's Law and Policy. And they made some recommendations to us about some front-end diversion programs that was one thing they saw our county lacked. Was we do a great job once kids get into the system to trying to keep them from going deeper into the system, but what are things we can do better about keeping youth from getting into the really getting referred to probation in the first place? So they made some recommendations. And almost every single one of the recommendations was funded by this county council to the Youth Services Bureau. The programs that are implemented now that Vicki Tavena's working on with the Youth Services Bureau, those really came from the CCLP report. And one of the things that CCLP recommended was a trip to Toledo, Ohio to see their JDAI program that's been in existence for a really long time. We learned a ton by going. We took a team to Toledo to see their front end diversion. Well, this grant for this year, we're going back. And we're going to take a team again, and we're going to take this time our new juvenile judge, Judge Harvey, with us, and more of a team to look again, front end diversion. What are some things we can do and do better to keep youth out of the system in the first place, and try to learn from a partner who's been in JDAI a lot longer than we have. There are a few other things we're doing with this money. I'll just hit the highlights. A couple, we're doing a pilot project with Girls Inc. front end diversion. And just want to let you know that you'll hear more about what our projects are as we get deeper into those. But we're really excited about getting this opportunity and getting this extra money that we didn't know we were going to get, but we're very happy to have it. Thank you.
Congratulations. That's awesome. Are there questions or comments to my right?
I've got one.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I just want to comment. We spent some considerable time going through these grants, and that's an important process. I always try to make this known, and I want to do it again for any members of the public that are watching. These grants that we're really officially adopting in and helping probation and other departments to appropriate represent dollars that department heads such as Ms. Brady have gone out and secured from other sources outside the community to bring into this community. And they do tremendous things. I want to salute that effort because that's huge. That's dollars coming in. Not everything in this council faces is dollars coming in. And so we thank you very much for that. This long list, this exhaustive list, this represents hard work. And we want these dollars to continue in that way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any public comments on this item? Okay. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we are at item 12 with our correctional center.
Council, I move to approve the jail's request for an additional appropriation in Fund 1000-0380, General Fund Jail of $37,000 in the services category.
Second.
Good
Welcome.
evening, council. Little history about this. Last year, when we submitted our budget, we did not have the contract number for our medical line, for our medical contract with Advanced Correctional Healthcare. We knew that it was going to be close to $1 million. And when the contract finally came in, it was $1,054,000. So our budget was approved for $1 million. We've been able to transfer some money and get that down somewhat, but we're asking for an additional $37,000 to fulfill that contract.
Okay. Other questions to my right? Yes, Councilor McKim.
Actually, thank you, Mr. Crowe. Actually, my only question is when does the current contract expire and when are the new terms going to be renegotiated?
It's already been, every year they send us an updated contract. And this year it came in before budgets. So what we submitted for the 2023 budget is the correct number or figure for our contract.
So basically, it's currently the period of performance goes through 2023.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Questions to my left? How, is this a typical amount for the contract to increase? I remember a few years ago when I was your liaison, I seem to remember it was more like 800,000 or 900,000. Maybe I'm incorrect, but it seems to have increased rapidly.
It did because we added extra mental health hours and nursing hours.
Okay.
So with both of those, and we also added our electronic records, electronic medical records. So that was part of this contract. And when we added those, it was in the middle of the year. So that's why we didn't have it last year when we submitted our budget. But that's why the big increase.
Got it. Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
You jogged my thoughts. It seems to me as you and I have been on a number of tours of different correctional facilities, that this contract seems to be fairly in line with what facilities the size of Monroe County are. Like, this doesn't seem to be too outsized or too small to me. It seems about right for what we're doing right now. Is that correct?
Yes and no. I think for what we're doing, it's pretty accurate. I think there are some things we can do in the future, like look at 24-hour staffing for our medical, for our nurses. And we're actually not too far off of that. Another 20 hours and we'd have 24-hour, another 20 hours per week, and we would be able to go 24 hours a day. So I'm not sure on what that cost is right now, but I have asked them to give me those figures. That's the only thing that we're kind of lacking right now is that 24-hour a day service.
Sure. Great. Well, thank you. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but that's good to know.
Are there any other questions or comments from council? Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we are at item 13.
Council, I move to open for discussion and approval additional appropriations for Fund 89500000 American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA.
Second. Okay, so we're not going to read amounts and lines. Or no?
No, because we're going to discuss first. We're discussing. Is Julie online? Yes, okay. I can't see the, there we go. Hi. Okay. So trying to organize thoughts here. This is a continuation of a conversation that we've had last meeting and even in previous meetings with the commissioners, and Commissioner Thomas is joining us this evening. She and I have talked about the collective information that both counselors and commissioners had put into the shared spreadsheet. And I believe that spreadsheet was flashed in front of folks last meeting. Commissioner Thomas, would you like to add to that and get us into the discussion?
Yes, so I assume Counselor Wiltz that you've submitted the written version of what we came up with to your colleagues there. But there are multiple parts here. The first part is a review of the items where there was universal agreement among those who completed the survey, 9 out of 10, and not just universal support, but an agreement on the amount, which was nice to see. And so those are, there are 5 total projects. Rural Transit purchased 6 buses, Ocean's Place, phase 1, phase 2 infrastructure, Hoosier Hills Food Bank storage trailer, those are all under community infrastructure. And under public health and safety, there was universal agreement on the ambulance service and wastewater monitoring. The second section are items that perhaps we can discuss today and agree to an amount on, because everyone agreed to fund them, but the amount of the funding varied. So I provided details on those projects. And those come under environment, public health and safety, county infrastructure, community infrastructure in general. And then I also provided some questions to think about as to our next steps. What do we do in January? How do we keep working through and fine-tuning these proposals? And then I provided notes, just sort of a compilation of where everybody was in terms of how they voted on the spreadsheet, how they, what information they provided on the spreadsheet. And that is just general information for your edification. I also included there the survey results as well at the end. So a little bit of additional information. So I don't know if we want to just start with the first 5 where everybody has been in agreement. And I leave that all up to you, but I just kind of wanted to walk you through this document briefly.
Thank you. I think what we should do is start with the first 5 and find out if there are questions or concerns around those, or if we are comfortable with putting those forward this evening. So I'll just open it up to any council member. Yes.
Might I just ask a question regarding the wording on one of these? It says, and I don't see it now, but it was saying it was about repairs to housing, and it was tied to, it said rural housing. And I wonder if they really mean just not in the city, because rural housing is really a financial way. It's a mortgage through rural housing. And this, if we're going to put money into housing where people needs a roof or a furnace or something, it should be for anyone who needs it if it meets certain qualifications, not just who has the mortgage, I would think. So you can think about that, Julie, and tell me what you think on that. I think it's probably just an error the way it was put in there.
And we aren't even at that point.
Right,
Yeah.
but I wanted to get that out so somebody could kind of research that.
Julie, did you have a response to that?
Yeah, I think we are going to need clarification on whether or not the house has to be owned by or is under the mortgage of the resident, or if this is something where a landlord could ask for assistance. I think we're going to, if we agree to start working on this, we're going to have to come up with a memorandum of understanding with township trustees on defining who should receive assistance, whether it's partial or full assistance for, necessary repairs. And then what are those necessary repairs, right? It's not to install a hot tub, but maybe a new roof or plumbing problems or HVAC or something. This is not related to a legal term. This is how it was presented to the group as a need that we wanted to address in the community. And the idea was to help folks who are struggling to maintain their places of residence, to ensure that they can continue to live safely and comfortably in their homes.
May I just follow
Sure.
up? I think in direct answer to Councilor Hoff's question, this has nothing to do with whether or not the property is subject to a USDA rural home.
Right.
It's nothing to do with that. It's just using rural as a.
They used the term such that it could be. Anyway, it was just a small little thing. I didn't need to get us off.
Okay. No, I think that some of these projects were very detailed and some were completely lacking in any description. So it's good that we're having kind of this discussion. Do you have more on this particular item?
Oh, no, I was going to talk
Okay.
about the first five.
Let's go back up to the first five, just because I'm hoping there is more agreement around those. Go ahead with Councilor McKim.
So first question is probably an easy one. The Osage Place, if we're actually going to do an appropriation, would that be in the services category or the capital category? My guess is the services category, but maybe I'm wrong.
Right now, I'm planning on everything being services unless you tell me differently.
Okay, because I was thinking everything else was capital except for that one of the five, but I guess maybe does the auditor's office have an opinion on that one? Does it matter? We can just do a transfer if we need to.
I think that's what we were planning on doing, is like putting everything in services and then making transfers once.
Good.
Just so we can establish numbers and get things going.
Good enough. Okay.
Okay.
So I guess my second comment question, I don't know, about the ambulance service. So actually this was not strictly unanimous in the sense that I had only put 3/4 of that amount in my survey response, because I know that fourth truck that they were talking about really would have been a spare. And so I thought maybe we just go with the 3 active and leave the, and maybe wait on the spare. I'm okay with going with 4. I am convinced that there's definitely a need in the community. I am convinced that there have been enough times in which the other ambulance services, for example, are sent to work with other counties as well, leaving us sometimes uncovered. And so I'm certainly glad to support that. I do have a concern in general about the proposal, in the sense that the MCFPD plans to support the provision of services through essentially billing of the patients who are served by the ambulance. I have some serious concerns about some of the tactics used by ground-based ambulances particularly in out-of-network billing. And I can kind of go into a lot of detail if anybody wants. I don't think this is the right time. I have expressed those concerns to Chief Dillard, and I just want to make sure that if we're going to be supporting a new ambulance service here, that the billing has to be fair to and at a rate that is actually able to, that regular people can actually afford, particularly with out-of-network, because the out-of-network ground-based ambulances were specifically excluded from the Surprise Act, the No Surprises Act, that essentially eliminates out-of-network balance billing. They're still allowed to do that with ground-based ambulances. And I just want to make sure that we do what we can in any agreements with the Fire Protection District to keep those rates affordable. Yeah.
I appreciate hearing that, Councilor Kim. All of these things are going to require a contract or agreement of some kind. So we will definitely ensure that that gets addressed.
Thank you.
Yeah. I had no idea. Go ahead.
Regarding the ambulance service, what I wonder about is many times if someone has a problem getting up steps. One occasion, I was at a funeral, a service, and we had then gone to the lower level of the church, and then we couldn't get the person in the wheelchair who was there with us back up the steps, and people showed up from the ambulance service and got that wheelchair and the lady up the steps. So I'm wondering, will that kind of service be still available? And I'm not sure, that's just a question. I don't know what the answer is, and I don't know who gives the answer. But I think that's that while I remember that specific time, I know there are other times when people just get down and can't get up. Maybe they had knee surgery, whatever. They just get down, can't get up. Can they still call for help or not?
I mean, as somebody who has actually had somebody come out to our house for a lift assist from the fire department, that was a service that they gladly provided.
They do.
To a family member of mine.
Right. So I'm wondering if that's going to change. That's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah.
It is an important service. I agree.
Yeah, you can't imagine it would change. I'm gonna turn this way. Are there comments or questions about these 5 items?
So I certainly am in support of these. I looked at it during our survey. And I'm looking forward to supporting these with our decision.
Great. Councilor Iverson.
I just have, I think, 2 clarifications on what's being shown on the screen for the public and also for my own understanding. Osage Place, the recipient of the funds would be Habitat for Humanity, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then for wastewater monitoring, the recipient of those funds would be the Monroe County Health Department.
Ms. Thomas, is that correct?
Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, I believe so, but the monitoring involves IU and one of the local service agencies, Bynum Faneuil, I believe. So I believe it would be simplest to just go to the health department. But I don't know for sure.
And this is directly related to testing for COVID-19 and other substances in wastewater, correct?
Right.
Excellent. Thank you for the clarification.
So I'm working on the numbers. And so am I interpreting this correct, that the wastewater monitoring is a service and the rest of them are going to be capital?
I
don't know about Osage Place. Is
Okay,
that cap?
Okay.
But you said you wanted them all. I mean, we can just make them all.
I realized when I got into Lao, I do have capital numbers, so I can do it. I just needed to know which ones are which, and I can give them to you here in just a moment. And then that way you guys can do the account lines and the titles and the appropriations all at once.
I think the question I would have is, how do we normally provide funding to social service agencies, 501c3s in our community? Because that would then give you direction for Osage Place and for Habitat for Humanity and for Hoosier Hills.
We do services with contracts.
So do we just want a motion to amend to add these 5 lines and their amounts? Is that, would that be in order?
Let's do it.
Yes, actually, I think there's a second motion. Is there not? I'm sorry.
Not in
I think it
detail.
was just to.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, please. All right.
Council, I move to amend the motion on the floor to add the following lines and appropriations: rural transit, bus purchase, $540,000, Habitat for Humanity, Osage Place, $1,773,076. Hoosier Hills Food Bank, $30,000. Monroe County Fire Protection District Ambulance Service, $1,217,970. And wastewater monitoring, $91,000.
Second.
So is there further discussion? I don't know if everyone was able to have their questions answered or comments on let's just keep it at the current motion with the 5 items. No? Okay. Sorry, sharing my screen has maxed out my technical ability to multitask. Would there be any public comment at this time on these items?
We're going to vote on the amendment.
Yeah.
Which we can do a voice vote.
Yeah.
I did it as an amendment just because
Yeah.
Councilor Deckard had originally just made a motion. So I did this as an amendment to that. I
And the voice you moved to open discussion rather than just opening
I had a
discussion.
weak motion.
I apologize. I'm sorry. Okay, so let's vote on the amendment to add these. And there's no public comment. She says hopefully. Okay. Then do I do a voice vote? Because it's amending. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All against say nay. Motion passes. And is there any further discussion on creating these lines and appropriating the funds?
Is your idea then to move on to the next?
Mhm.
Okay.
Public comment? Could we have a roll call vote on the entire thing? Just on which spot?
Yeah.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Hall.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Thank you. Okay, so I just scrolled to show a few other of the projects. And as Commissioner Thomas mentioned, these had agreement on being funded, but not agreement around how much to fund. Commissioner Thomas, did you want to, well, the retention bonus, I'll start with that one since that sort of came from council. And that refers to the countywide bonus that's already been approved for 2023 and would fall easily into an ARPA category and was suggested as it would also be an attempt to alleviate a current deficit budget. So that is what that one's about. And so that's the amount that was calculated for that bonus. The childcare had 2 components, one of which was an endowment. And right now, endowments can't be funded under ARPA rules. So Commissioner Thomas pulled out that amount. And so what we're seeing, which is we're seeing all of it. So this would be, the proposal would be to fund at $1,025,000. Is that correct?
Right, because everyone who responded to the survey chose between 2 million and 2,525,000. So everybody was within that ballpark. But we can't do an endowment right now. And so there are programs that can be started without an endowment, and that would be the $1,025,000 amount. And I don't know, this doesn't entirely go to one specific organization. I believe Ivy Tech's involved. I believe there are a couple other organizations involved. So I would, if we could just leave it as childcare, we can distribute that to those programs.
Are there questions? I didn't think to ask about the retention bonus. I think most of us are familiar with that, but are there questions around the childcare programming? Yes.
So just just to make sure I understand the strategy here, the idea is that we could make this appropriation of $1,025,000, but that contracts or memoranda of understanding would need to be established with the service providers after the fact to actually expend that. Okay, I'm good with that.
Councilor Munson.
Yes, I have a question. There is also the potential for future childcare funding. Should endowments become possible that would allow us to make long-term investments in childcare?
Yep.
Okay.
And just for clarification, just to make sure everybody knows where we're at, $300,000 would go to New Hope to complete the commercial kitchen, and Ivy Tech would receive $725,000 to remodel space, create outdoor play space, a garden, and prepare for childcare services. That's the split.
It's good.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to move to the rural housing repair that we touched on earlier. And this would be, as indicated, via hopefully our kind township trustees. Similar, I think, to what we did with the funding, was it CARES funding? Yeah. So allowing them to distribute and manage those funds. Are there questions about that?
And if I could give a point of clarification, we had a range, and I neglected to put this on the memo. We had a range that suggested funding that went from $100,000 all the way up to $650,000. So we had quite the range. And so we wanted to throw this out there as a starting number. We would try to operate this as we did with CARES funding, where there's a fund established and the trustees make the determinations about repairs and eligibility and percentage of coverage, et cetera, and then come to us to replenish their funding in incremental amounts. But we could set a threshold of $200,000 to start with and see how that goes. And that's just a suggestion based on that very wide range of dollar amounts that we saw.
Did you have a question, Councilor?
I thought that I saw something fairly recently from Area 10 about their need for additional funding for repairs for housing. And actually, I saw a truck driving around, said community services, and then there's something attached that said Spartan on it. So I looked that up, and it looks like that might be a part of some way to provide services to someone who maybe had a problem in their house they couldn't afford to fix. The reason why I think this is so very important, during that whole annexation discussion, and we saw so many people in the different neighborhoods who'd lived in those homes for years and years and years. Many of them are now living there as a widow, no longer have the income coming in, and really they don't have the money for the roof or the furnace, whatever. And the reason why it's important that we try to maintain the existing housing, because if they really cannot do the roof and they just live there anyway and let it leak and put the buckets around, eventually they will have to move. And which is sad, but in the meantime, that very house that could be an entry-level house for another person has now been damaged to the point of a lot more money that the community might have put into it. I know I have housing on the brain, but that's what I spent my life doing, was trying to help people in the housing. So I know how important it is. But I also wanted to say, I didn't fill out these numbers because I never did get a number that said, what is the highest amount that we can use for a retention bonus? I mean, I wasn't filling this out because I didn't have, nobody ever gave us the numbers. Did you get numbers? At our last meeting, I said, I want to put the highest amount that we can for the retention or those bonuses and try to capture as much as we could. I never got a dollar amount. Now, I mean, if the rest of you got it, fine. I didn't. So
I sent it in an email, that, you know.
was it the little?
Yeah, it was an email that showed exactly what was approved by in the budget per line,
Right.
per fund. So.
And that 1.2 million,
Yeah,
that's what that number
Yeah, it
totals
was
out
that
to.
1.2.
That's not, that really wasn't my question.
Okay,
Because I thought, I mean, when we were talking about additional bonuses, even for law enforcement or whatever, I wanted to see the captured of what all we could do. And there's like 10 million sitting there of ARPA that we can use for different purposes without being so strict about it. So. So, whatever.
Well,
Sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I would like to make a comment that I was the one who added a line to the survey that went out to all council members and commissioners to include the $2,000 ARPA retention bonus for all county employees. So that specific amount, the actual number of dollars in the budget, was listed in that survey.
Councilor Iverson and then.
So my question pertains specifically to rural housing. So if we want to continue the line of questioning on retention, I can wait.
Is there another comment on retention?
I just had one. I appreciate the retention amount that's specified in there. And part of the ARPA dollars effort is to, in this post-pandemic and even in the pandemic period, to make the community whole. Part of that is the service that we provide as a county to make that whole. We talked about this last meeting, but when the pandemic started, we weren't really sure what the end result. I think back then I called it the tail of the dragon. What the tail would do is it left. I think what the tail has done is it's affected employment, which who could predict precisely that? I don't know. And I think I appreciate that $1,282,650 in there as a semblance of recognizing what the county is dealing with our personnel who served throughout this pandemic and have been to, where and back in that process. And I think this helps us do that in that same respect. Not to diminish anything else on this list or anything that we just prior voted on, but I think that's a strong consideration.
Councilor McKenna.
Yeah, so actually to follow up on what Councilor Hawk was saying, so we do have this line for the retention bonus, and we already know what that is. But we also had another line in the survey, which we called public safety salaries, that I think essentially functioned the same way. That was essentially just replacement of expenditures in the general fund. So where is that in this list?
Yeah. It didn't make the cut on this, and I was under the impression too that for some reason, I mean, I didn't remove it, but I was under the impression that we had agreed to make it just one item. And I know.
My recollection as well.
Okay, I know I was remote last time and that was
I mean, it can be one item. I just
Counselor, okay, let's let Commissioner Thomas, because I know she worked the most on this.
Yeah, just for clarification's sake. So to be clear, for the retention bonus, 6 of 9 people supported it. And that's the 1.28 to 650. For the county, for the public safety salaries, we only had 3 respondents who put dollar amounts in out of 9.
Okay.
Well, that's fine. So, I mean, the part of this process is to continue to argue this in January. So I'm perfectly happy to start out with this amount here, but I will continue to argue for additional support for those public safety salaries to replenish the
Absolutely.
general fund
Right.
when we get to January.
I thought we were going to get a dollar amount that we could throw in there.
Well, I think that's what Counselor Munson did.
Yeah, I mean, you can, but it needs to get support both the commissioners and the council.
Right.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So, and this isn't, I think this is what you're getting at, Counselor McKim. It's not the end of the process. This is just the beginning. So we're taking the things that we find agreement on and that we can work to agreement on and getting those done. That we still have other opportunity and other funding in the pot, so to speak. And our intent is to pick this back up in January, even to continue the conversation. So whatever we're feeling about projects that aren't showing up in this first blush, absolutely room for conversation.
Agree.
that.
Okay,
Okay,
I'm good with that.
I feel better about that.
Okay. So retention bonus discussed. Childcare comments. We did that. Rural housing repair.
Just that the 200,000 was kind of on the low end, wasn't it? It was.
Yes.
What was the breakdown of support? Because I could definitely go higher on that one.
Support ranged from, I just said it, but I'm going to go look again. Support ranged from 100,000 to 650,000. But this is something where we can come back in January, see how it's going, and consider adding additional funds too.
True.
We're considering this like the start, right?
Yeah.
So that's another way to look at it.
Counselor Iverson.
I really like that approach. And the reason for that is I had a really hard time thinking about the dollar amount to put in this line, because I just don't have data to understand rural housing, and in particular, what the need is going to be as people go to their township trustees and say, I need renovations for my home. Now, I knocked a lot of doors in this past election cycle. I saw a lot of housing situations, but I haven't seen data on, what the status is. So, Madam President, if it'd be okay, it'd be interesting to hear the township trustees give us a presentation to say, we heard from 2 people or we heard from 200 people.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, we still, I think, need to work out with the township trustees how much, what they're willing to do and how they'd like to manage, and, how we can do that. So it might not be something we can do second week of January.
That is all right. That's understandable.
Yeah. Process question. We've looked at 3 categories. My intent was to go through the categories in this kind of bigger, we sort of agreed, we didn't agree, and then touch back on each one as an exact number and whether or not I'll take motions to fund at a certain level. Does that seem like an okay way to do it?
That's fine with me.
Okay. Yeah. Scanning. Okay. All right, so I'm going to jump down then to the county infrastructure, and we had convention center maintenance and improvement projects. And Commissioner Thomas put all of the itemized projects in here because there was a lot of variation, I think, in what council and commissioners wanted to fund. Could you add to that, or is there more?
The range is there printed, 1 million to the full amount.
Yes. So the full amount is $2,671,500. And that would fund all of these projects. Are there questions or comments on that? Yes, Councillor McKim.
Yes, I would definitely prefer to do the convention center repairs in stages. I still have very much hope that the CIB will, that the commissioners created will be managing the expansion of a new convention or an expanded convention center soon. And some of these repairs or some of these upgrades at least might be made moot. They might be changed. They might fall into a broader project. I would prefer around the 1 million or let's say 1,059,000 for this first phase to let them get these kind of important repairs that we know they're going to have to do, like we know they're going to have to do the tuck pointing and the water, the cooling tower, the elevators desperately need repair, the windows. So that would kind of be my preference to vote on that top number and then defer everything else.
Councillor Iverson.
I couldn't agree more. At the CVC meeting, we talked about there are 17 definite conventions coming to our convention center next year. And of those 6 are brand new associations. It's really exciting what's happening and the need for an expansion is really upon us. So I think Councilmember McKim's question or comments are very apt.
Other thoughts, questions? Okay.
Okay. That works.
Okay.
That works for us.
Great. You know what? I realized I think Commissioner Jones is on here, but I just don't have a good grasp of it. So if she's trying to speak, please make sure she can. Oh, thank you. Changed my view. The next
she may not be. Is she a panelist? She is listed there.
She's not a panelist yet.
She may need to be promoted if.
Right. Yeah.
we promote CML Jones, I believe is. She is. Thanks. Environment, solar projects rose to the top in this category. And the funding ranged from 500,000 to 1,011,571. And that says minus YSB. Could you talk about that, Julie?
Yeah, so when we initially had our funding levels, we did not have the dollar amount for putting canopies and additional solar panels on top of the employee parking garage. That got added, that's 75,000. But then when we discussed this, I guess it was last month, it was suggested that the YSB portion, the $191,520 could come out of juvenile COED instead of ARPA. And so I added the 75,000, took the 191,520 out. That's what ended up on the spreadsheet, which is the 1,011,571. Does that make sense? So that's everything that's there minus the YSB.
Great. Are there questions or comments on this item? Councilor Iverson.
Commissioner Thomas, do these solar projects include not only the PV panels, but also electric charging stations, or is it just the solar cells?
It includes everything, but it does not include battery backup. And we really would like to add battery backup to those 2 sites that are asterisked. And so that's going to be an additional cost that we don't have yet. We'll have to find a way to fund that. But it includes everything. But of course, this was done a month ago, so I don't know what the costs are now and whatever else. But that was the estimate that came in from MPI.
That's
fantastic. Survey for us.
Excellent.
Other questions? Yes.
Only that, I think, I might have been the one that suggested we pull, the Youth Services Bureau out of there. And I think that fund is flush and I definitely think we should move forward with solar panels on the YSB building, but I think it's perfectly appropriate that we use the juvenile co-ed money for that. Otherwise, I certainly support this as presented here. I think this is a great value.
Other thoughts? Okay. Okay, I'm gonna move on.
So the next item is related to the End Right East, and everyone agreed to fund it, and everyone supported it, and everyone put in the full amount. Now that full amount was a guess, and it does not reflect an actual purchase of a specific property. It also included endowment. We don't know what percent is a purchase, what percent is endowment. I don't know that they've identified a property, but what I would suggest is that we have the team that worked on this great project contact Area 10 and ask them to come back with a proposal for a specific property. And we can then see how it fits with the budget in January. It may, if they can come back that quickly.
Who was on the team? I had a
It's
feeling.
Councilor Munson and Commissioner Jones.
Would you be willing to reach out to them?
Absolutely.
Okay, that would be
This is
great.
really good news. Yeah.
Okay. So that is all of what we had those varying levels of agreement on. So I'm going to scroll back up and I'm going to entertain motions from people who are more articulate than I.
Yeah, council, I move that we appropriate the following amounts in the services category in Fund American Rescue Plan Act Fund 8950-0000. The retention bonus and create lines. Retention bonus, $1,282,650. Childcare, $1,025,000. Rural housing repair, $200,000. Convention center repairs, $1,059,000. And solar projects, $1,011,571.
Second.
Any other thoughts or comments on this motion?
I'm gonna make sure.
Mm-hmm.
So if we say we approve this, does not mean that we might say in January that we're approving still more on maybe a specific.
Yep, no, we can, this doesn't limit what we do next. I think that's your question, right? Yeah.
I will definitely support some increases in rural housing and then also in
Yeah.
in the salary replacement.
Yes.
Any other questions from council or commissioners? Okay, is there public comment on this item? And that's what, this item is a lot of items mushed together. I see nobody online with a hand raised. And a lot of people anxiously waiting for another agenda item. So we will go ahead and do a roll call vote, please.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Thank you. And yes, Julie.
Appreciate all of this hard work today. This was great. When Councilor Wiltz and I spoke, we came up with what we thought might be a good game plan for our next step. And that is to ask everyone to go back into the spreadsheet and take a look at the projects. I'll make some notes in there about what gets approved. We still have to, as commissioners, by the way, approve the policy change tomorrow at our meeting, so that will be on our agenda. But if everyone could go back and look at that Excel spreadsheet, the internal survey, and see if there's numbers you wish to modify. We also think it might be useful to have everyone look at the remaining projects and just prioritize what they want to have happen, not by dollar amount, just by the projects that they want to see get completed or funded, at least partially. And then Councilor Wilson and I can sit down with those two pieces of information and come back with some suggestions, at least some launching points for discussion. It doesn't mean that, what we're going to propose is in cement. It just means at least we have a number to talk about or a project to talk through. And we could do that at the January work session. So that's what we would like to suggest. And I don't know if Councilor Wills wants to add anything.
No, I think that sums up what we talked about. Does that seem like an okay? Yes, go ahead. Councilman.
I would like to ask Commissioner Thomas to update that survey and highlight those particular projects and their funding amounts that we just voted on.
Right.
Can you do that?
Right, I will.
Okay, thank you.
And that will make it easier. Yes, Councilor McKim.
And I just want to thank Commissioner Thomas and Councilor Wiltz for having kind of done this pre-work. This was actually very productive. And I feel like we advanced ourselves substantially from where we were before. I know you guys put a lot of time into it. So
Commissioner Thomas did a lot of it too. Yeah, I'm pleased with this. This is good. This feels good to move forward finally on this. Thank you, Commissioner Thomas.
Thank you, all of you. Appreciate you.
We will see you in January. All right. Now we move to item 14 on our agenda.
Council, I move to approve the amendment of the 2022 salary ordinance to increase the base rate of the correctional officers and merit deputies by 15% with an effective date of October 23rd, 2022, and simultaneously approve the amendment of the 2023 salary ordinance to increase the new 2022 base rates by an additional 5%, which is the already approved COLA increase.
second.
And I just want to remind council and the public that the original motion to amend the 22 and 23 salary ordinances was November 29th, last week. And pursuant to state law and local code, unanimous consent of members present is required to pass an ordinance on the same day or at the same meeting at which it's introduced. So a second reading to amend the salary ordinances is required, given that it did not pass unanimously. And since I was in attendance remotely last time, and I didn't feel like I could fully participate that way, if you'll indulge me, I've written out some thoughts to kind of explain my vote no and my continued concerns. Because the problem of recruitment and retention is not unique to the sheriff's office or the correctional center. And in fact, it's not unique to law enforcement either. But what is a concern is that just with our community corrections staff, these jobs are critical to public safety. And as a county, we are statutorily mandated to make this work.
Counselor, can you pull the mic closer? They can't hear you. Thank you.
Yes. I'm sympathetic to both the road deputies and the jail corrections officers' situations. This past weekend, I know that one of our deputies was injured when he and others put their lives in danger in the line of duty. And that's not a job I could do. It takes special training and it takes special people. And I am keenly aware of that. However, some of the information presented to the public has been skewed, and in some cases, we have new information to inform our decisions. We do not have a shortage of road deputies per our sheriff. There's a backlog of needed training at the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy that's actually preventing our new hires from being placed fully in service. The jail staffing is in a critical state. We need more officers and we need a safe environment for both the staff and those incarcerated there. I was surprised last week when we approved a pay increase slightly larger than that was actually requested by the collective bargaining unit. I am in favor of adjusting the salaries for both bodies, but it is our duty as a council to take care of all of our county obligations and steward the taxpayers' money into a solvent future. Here are some reasons that the amount approved last week is not in line, in my opinion, with that responsibility. First, we have several known and unknown expenses facing the county in the coming months, including an election recount, realigning and expansion of services per our criminal justice report recommendations, the construction of the new jail facility, and transition from our current jail to the new one. In addition, there are other impending budget impacts, the potential annexation of unincorporated areas by the city, and the continued economic uncertainty. I'm also sensitive to the fact that we are negotiating compensation with two groups represented by authorized collective bargaining units who will be renegotiating their contract in a year. Our actions should be in line with what is needed to address a current crisis in the interim. Over the past several years, we've worked with the unions to increase the salaries of our road deputies, even beyond that proposed by the bargaining unit. We've also ensured that there's additional compensation for training and educational milestones, as well as supervisory roles and training roles within the jail and deputy pay grids. These efforts made by council and commissioners include the parity of the jail commander and chief deputy salaries, which are classified as special occupations in our system. In January of this year, we actually approved tying the assistant jail commander and the sheriff's captain of operations to a fixed amount over that of the 25-year lieutenant pay level. And in fact, since last week's meeting, we have been informed that the increase to the merit deputy salaries will push up the captain of operations and the assistant jail commander salaries above that of the chief deputy and jail commander. These 4 administrative position increases were not considered at the last meeting's vote. And another thing not fully considered when council voted to increase the 2022 salary level retroactive to late October are the overtime costs that will need to be paid out. The increases are estimated at over $250,000. While we hope that increasing salary levels will improve recruitment and retention and therefore decrease future overtime lines, a review of past overtime expenditures indicates that this unknowable expense still will be considerable. I recognize that we must do something to support our officers in both the jail and on the roads. Councilors Munson and Crossley have worked hard, as have our staff, to identify all the possibilities for addressing the requests of the corrections officers and merit deputies, and I truly appreciate them. We must look at the data they have provided to make the best decision possible here. Looking at the comparison county data, which is what we have done for years when making adjustments in compensation, clearly supports a salary increase, but not one at the level in the current ordinance under consideration. We cannot be the city of Bloomington or Indiana University. County budgets are limited and we augment our salaries with tangible and intangible benefits. We have a newly elected sheriff who will surely be examining management practices as well as organizational structure, which are his purview. And I hope there will be increased efficiencies as well as a thoughtful review of all types of compensation across the sheriff's office. With these new considerations, I'm urging my colleagues to reconsider the structure of the salary ordinance amendment with the following suggestions. I would suggest adding a one-time bonus for 2022 instead of what is currently proposed, and addressing 2023 with a salary increase of an additional 5% over the already approved 5% countywide cost of living increase. This leaves room for contract negotiation to address 2024 and beyond. I have a motion I'm prepared to make. I'm not anticipating that this is going to make everyone super excited. But I'm going to make the motion and hope for a second. And I hope that we can discuss. Yeah.
So point of order, please. Point of order, please. There is already a motion on the table, so this would be an amendment, would
Yes.
it not?
It's a, yes.
Okay,
A
thank you.
motion to amend.
Thanks.
So I move to revise the amendment as follows. Replace the language of a 15% increase to the base salaries of the merit deputies and corrections officers in the 2022 salary ordinance with a bonus of $2,000 and add an additional 5% to the already approved 5% COLA for the 2023 salary ordinance. I need a second. Thank you. It looks as though we have a comment from our auditor's office.
I have recently had the opportunity to talk with Auditor Smith, and our office also has concerns about the sustainability of the previous proposed motion. Just because of the many unknowns and honestly, everything you stated. So just wanted to reiterate, we have the same feelings. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd open it up for comments and questions. So I'll start at the end with, did you have your hand raised?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was Councilor Iverson.
So I wanted to clarify that I'm hearing correctly. The motion on the floor is that the 5% COLA will be added another 5%. So that's a 10% increase. And on top of that will be a $2,000 bonus.
To be done for 2022.
That's right. That's right. So, okay.
Yes.
That's the question I have for right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Other questions, comments? Councilor McKim.
I'm sorry, you made a comment about $250,000 in increase in overtime. Is that correct? Yeah.
What I did was I took what has already been spent in overtime. I averaged it over the pays, and that is how much is per pay amount. That's an average. It's not what is actual. I mean, I took the actual amount, divided it by 24 pays because that's how many pays that was including. And then I just did the multiplication that way. So that's an estimate of what the overtime will cost.
Thank you.
Councilor Huff, you turned on your mic. Do you have a comment?
So are we in the process of discussing this amendment?
Yes.
Regrettably, this should have been discussed when we were discussing all other matters of budgets during the budget workshops. We knew how much we were at least trying to arrive at, how much money we had to spend. We spent it on everybody else, and we let these people hang in the wind. And that's not right. And I understand that there's concern, and I'm the biggest hawk when it comes to trying to make sure we stay within budgets. But I also know that if we didn't treat these people well and fairly, we're all going to be in trouble. They are required by law to be in place for us. We keep spending money on departments that we're not required to do. And I didn't hear anybody saying, well, we can't really afford these big raises that were given through the WIS study. But the WIS study made a big mistake when it came to our law enforcement, a big mistake. And we knew that, and they've been saying it was a mistake. Now, this was supposed to be bringing up what they should have been making through that WIS study. The WIS study was just wrong. And so you put that together with everybody else's increases through the West study. If you're not going to give it to them, then the other people shouldn't get it either. I mean, we have to look at it all together. I really regret that this is happening this way. Had we had all the information at the correct time and put it all into the same hat and split the money up as best we could, which is what we're supposed to be doing during the work sessions, and it didn't happen. Why didn't it happen? Oh. Not fair.
Well, I think we worked with the information we had at the time. And mostly I agree with you. Mostly I agree that we need to be fair and we need to treat our officers as well as we possibly can. I can't express the amount of concern I have over the amount of impact an increase in salary of this magnitude will have in perpetuity. And I think that as we're coming out of some really economically trying and uncertain times, another year that we can buoy at this level until they go back into where these conversations are supposed to take place, which is their contract negotiations. I
do want to also mention that it's been said, well, we gave them what they asked for. Well, remember, they got a letter from the council saying don't ask for more than 5%. So that's what they were trying to be good soldiers, thinking that this would get worked out later. Well, later is a poor way of doing this, but I'm ready to vote. I mean, this is what's going to happen, but this is.
Point of order. Sorry. Point of order. I respect the conversation that's going on, but I don't feel like you were finished. So if I can hear you finish your statement. I just want to make sure that we all are being respectful and respected at the same time, because this is a very difficult decision. And I have my thoughts and I'll give my deliberation here in a little bit, but I do want to hear President Wiltz finish her statement.
Mm-hmm. Well, I took a lot of liberties with speaking for a long time, and I just am really trying to balance. I'm trying to balance the needs across the county. We have responsibilities across the whole county, and I'm trying to do as much as I feel we are responsibly able to do. And the council office has run a lot of numbers. They're sitting in front of you to look at. I'm not trying to appeal to your emotions. I'm really trying to look at this logically and responsibly in terms of our duty as stewards of the taxpayers' money. Thank you. I'd like to make sure other people can talk, please.
Just a point of clarification. The same document that we are looking at has been printed out on the table. I don't think we were able to get it to those in the audience prior to tonight. So that document is sitting on the table for your reference. And I think.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor Munson.
Thank you. I wanted to, excuse me, my voice, just a minute. I want to comment that I feel a certain responsibility here for not recognizing that overtime needed to be brought into our assessment of fiscal impact when we discussed this at our last meeting. And it's not just the overtime amounts, but the FICA and PERF benefits that are necessary to pay as well. And this is not just for the overtime that has occurred in 2022, but also the overtime that will occur in 2023 and and in years going forward. It is a huge buy-in for the council that we cannot predict and control very well. And I'm sorry that I didn't understand this at the time we were initially considering fiscal impact, but it is a very big one and it concerns me greatly. The concern is not with how much money is being paid out in the near future, but sustaining that agreement going forward.
Councilor Iverson.
So now that I have some questions just to clarify the motion on the table here. So if I understand it correctly, we're adding an additional 5%, which would be proposal A1 on the bottom. Is that the right way to think about this? That's an additional 5% on the COLA?
That's additional 5%. This includes a different effective date than what I proposed.
Okay.
I was proposing the additional 5% to be implemented in 2023 with the COLA. So basically the county-wide COLA of 5% for everybody else, and these folks get 10%.
Sure. Okay. So the numbers here that we have for the effective date of 10/23/2022 would be different given your effective date. Is my understanding correct on that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But I think still the third proposal on this front page of the 5% base increase still gives us a pretty good indication of the fiscal impact. Going from $62,194.58 to a total increase of $404,264.79 over the 2023 budget that would be carried forward in all future budgets. I guess my question is, I don't always think clearly in these situations. So do I have that correct?
I believe I believe you should look at the 5% increase for the proposal A1 5% lower left as being just for the months beginning 10
January.
Effective date 10/20. No, it is 10/23/22. It is just for those pay periods. How many pay periods is that, Kim?
Or with the effective date of 10/4.
4 pay periods.
So it's the bottom right.
For the bottom right.
But I believe, just for clarification, your motion is for a bonus for 2022.
Not for,
And not
for the 5%
Correct.
increase.
A1 proposal wouldn't be part of
Right,
Councilor Wilson's.
right, right.
Sure.
I think you can compare the Councilor Wilson's proposal of a $2,000 bonus, which has a $247,000 impact, with the A1 lower left proposal, which has only a $62,000 fiscal impact.
Other comments or questions? Councilor McKim.
So the ordinance under consideration does not include any additional appropriation for overtime. Is that correct?
The original,
Yes.
sorry, the original.
Sorry, yes, the original.
The original motion.
The original.
Yes, does not include overtime.
Okay.
Or the 4 administrative.
Yeah, remember, we set the appropriation for overtime. We
Right.
it doesn't just automatically explode. We set the appropriation and the department heads need to manage what they have. And so we don't automatically have to increase the overtime line just because the salaries increase. That's not a requirement.
And I would hope that would be great and we could do that, but I'm certainly not going to tell someone who comes to me from their department, and these departments especially, who needs overtime and an additional appropriation. I'm saying, no, I just,
Right, but the fact that they would even have to come for an additional appropriation kind of adds some additional fiscal discipline, I think.
It adds some uncertainty in my mind.
For them or for
Me.
us?
You know, I mean, uncertainty as to what, it's just another source of uncertainty in not knowing exactly what we're doing. And that part's kind of typical. I mean, we always have that.
Right. I'm just saying that overtime, we're not automatically increasing our overtime budget because we're doing this. And overtime, or because we may vote on this. Overtime, we're not additionally appropriating.
That's
in the
correct.
overtime lines
That's correct. If we don't increase the overtime budget, which we're not doing, I mean, they will go through it very quickly at the higher rate.
But possibly they will, or possibly, particularly in the jail, that they'll use less of it because they'll be able to.
That'd be great. That would be great.
Okay,
Which-
you almost said what I had my hand up.
What is
it? Okay, we had problems filling open slots in the jail. I mean, unless you don't believe anything that these folks have been telling you, I believe it.
I absolutely believe it. And I'm.
Okay, so I'm just saying the overtime is tied to if they've been there very long, their salary is going to be more. And if they're doing the overtime, the cost of overtime is way high. If we fill the slots with people that don't have the seniority, the overtime numbers should come down, not only because there'll be people there, and so you aren't going to be paying overtime, but even if you are, it does not mean you're going to be paying double amount of these much higher salaries. So I don't know where this made up overtime came in to play, but I don't think it's reasonable because we don't know. We don't know.
Yes.
I just want to ask a clarifying question to that point. And that is to say, like, are there specific overtime numbers that we should be looking at that are not real in what's been given to us? I mean, because I want to make sure that I'm looking at the right data. And I just want to make sure that the claims of like made up numbers is not the case here.
There's nothing here that's reflective of that.
Hold on just a second.
It's okay.
Yes, staff has asked for a second. And while staff is doing that, I just want to say like that, I do believe that when staff says, these numbers are accurate, that's data that we need to go on here.
I went into our current Lao financials and took the overtime rates. And what you see here is what was approved by the council. And that's this number right here, which is 248,872. I took that amount and these are what has been spent to this point with regards to 24 claims or 24 payrolls. So that's the amount we have currently spent in overtime. I took that amount and averaged it out as a per pay kind of thing. And that's how I came up with the overtime rates for an average cost. So that's the average cost of overtime, which is around $9,572 per payroll. So
it's a lot.
That's how I came up with it. And then just did an estimate moving forward on that amount. So
I just wanted to give you a quick reminder that, the jail does have to be staffed. So if for whatever reason, attracting employees is still difficult, obviously there's going to be overtime. My understanding of how they staff the overtime, it's on a volunteer basis. So it's not necessarily, it can be on a volunteer basis. So it's not necessarily going to be those new employees at the lowest rate. I mean, it would be pretty enticing to those making more as well.
Thank you. Counselor Hawk.
Just as a reminder, part of what the testimony that came from the jailers was that they were being required to do this overtime, that they were not being able to take their vacation time or their time off with their families or anything because they were so short-staffed that they were, literally having to come in to make sure that the control room was covered. Look, of course, overtime is going to be higher while they were running short-staffed. They've been telling us this for months and months. Why wouldn't their overtime be higher than what it would be if we filled these slots?
If I may, that's exactly why I am fully supportive of giving them a raise over and above what all county employees are getting and a bonus over and above what other counties are getting. I don't want this to be an argument about me not believing what I've been told. I hear what's going on. I'm trying to take all of the information and do something that I feel is the most responsible for our budget and our future budgets.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Thank you, other counselors, your comments. I appreciate what you're saying. I also appreciate the fiscal responsibility we have. I mean, we talk about that all the time. I appreciate the note from the auditor. These are not normal times. They're extraordinary times and they're difficult times. My comfort level was with the original motion that I read this evening. I think that we do have uncertainties. I do think that we also, fairly put, always have some measure of uncertainty with these things. And I've said throughout this process, all of this is a muddling through it effort. I know that's an imprecise term for what we don't know, but in the time I've been on this council, there's so much that we do not know. For instance, we did not know what the end of the pandemic would do. We thought a lot of different things. We had no idea. And it appears that what it's done is had effects on employment, in addition to other economic issues. And so I truly appreciate the no. I think that there's much more to do on overtime. I think jail leadership will have to help us figure that out pretty quick. And that's their end of it. They might also have to figure out other things about where we do or do not have funding. But for me, the original motion is where my support would be.
I concur. Any other comments or questions? Yes.
Although I'm not going to support the motion, the amendment on the floor, I appreciate Council President Wiltz for bringing this forward. I think that did take a good degree of political courage. And I appreciate you making that point and sticking up for the sustainability of our budget and kind of balance across county functions. So I do appreciate that.
Thank you. Other comments? Did you have one? I'm sorry, Councilor Munson.
I would like to add another difference between what we reviewed last week and what we're reviewing now in terms of fiscal impact. And that is we neglected to include 4 administrative positions when calculating fiscal impact. We didn't realize we needed to do this until we saw that the increases that we voted for put 4 administrative positions below some of the below the salaries of some of the people that they were supervising. Those administrative positions include the jail commander, the sheriff's chief deputy, the assistant jail commander, and the sheriff's captain of operations. When we make a change in any part of the salary structure, it may affect another part of the salary structure. We have to have a comprehensive view of the changes that we make, and we did not have that last week. So I'm feeling uncomfortable about my vote last week because I don't think we had the information about how we can afford and sustain the increases that we would like to make. And that doesn't mean that we might not make future increases. Certainly, we have contract negotiations to take place in the next year.
Yeah.
And I've been part of contract negotiations before, and I know that this is always a fraught event that takes a long time to work out. So I'm going to support President Wiltz's proposed amendment because I feel so uncomfortable and uncertain about the structure of what we did last week's vote and its impact going into the future. At no point would I ever want to decrease any salaries anywhere if we have an issue. So I want to be conservative with my recommendation, and I'm going to vote in favor of this amendment.
Thanks. Other Counselor Hawk.
Okay, so I have been here for a few years and I've seen the council be short of money. And I've seen in order to make sure that we did what we had to do, we had to cut back on things we were not required by law to do. That didn't mean we got rid of departments, but we didn't grow those departments like the ones where we had to do it. These are tough decisions, and folks, you better start getting some broad shoulders because you're going to get a lot of tough decisions if this annexation thing goes through. And we will still have to have the jail because the city doesn't have a jail. You understand this? So we're already going to be faced with tough decisions. And we need to have people looking at the numbers, and I appreciate that because I do the numbers. I'm a numbers person, but I know where we can find this money. And where we can is every time somebody says, well, I want to hire another person. No, we're paying the jail staff and we're not going to cut them back so that you can have another brand new person. That's the way you do it. You just stop with the hiring and grow your money for the departments that you have to have it for. Good luck.
So and sitting here and listening to the conversations and plus listening to the conversations that we've had previously and looking at the room of standing crowd that we have here, I do want to echo Councilor McKim and say to President Wiltz that I appreciate your thought into this conversation. I know it wasn't easy, especially saying it into a room of people that are witnessing, plus people that we see here on Zoom and the comments that we are seeing here as well. as it was just said, that we need to get broad shoulders. I always tell myself in a joking way, I'm a big girl, literally and figuratively. And I think that we in Monroe County can do these hard things. I signed up to do this. I got elected to do this. I might be new to this, but I'm also true to this. So with that being said, while I appreciate the amendment, I do think that we can do hard things. I do think that we should be in support of what they have been asking for. And I would say for myself personally that, I don't support the amendment. I support what I voted for last week, and I will continue to support with that decision moving forward. So just wanted to go on record since everybody else is making comments. I figure I would go ahead and make my statement as well.
Thanks. Any other comments from council? All right. So,
We're just gonna call for the vote.
what?
Are we just gonna go ahead and call for the vote?
I think we do public comment at this juncture or at,
No, we're making a motion or
About
a
the
vote
amendment.
on the amendment.
got it. Okay, so we'll just go ahead. Okay. And this amendment, I can do a voice vote or no?
I think with the
No.
way
Recommend a
people
roll
are
call.
speaking, we'll do a roll call.
I'm just trying to follow it. Okay. So, if there aren't any more comments, then I'll
We're
call for,
voting on the amendment.
yes. Call for a roll call vote, please.
Okay, this is a roll call vote on the amendment to replace the language that was originally presented. Counselor Iverson,
Oh, come on.
No.
How broad are those shoulders, Peter? Sorry.
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
No.
Counselor Deckard,
No.
Counselor Crossley,
No.
Counselor McKim,
No.
Counselor Munson.
Yes.
Motion fails 3-4.
Okay, Counselor Munson.
I would like to, I would like to offer an alternative amendment. And that would be to take a middle ground, to have the $2,000 2022 bonus, as was proposed by Counselor Wiltz, and to change the 2023 increase from the additional 5% to an additional 10%, which would be intermediate between the 15% and the 5% that have been considered.
Second.
Okay, and just for clarification, you wanted an additional 10%.
Yes, so that, okay, so the fiscal impact would be halfway between the 15% and the additional 5%. Okay.
Is your amendment for the increased salary to start in 2023?
To 2023, yes.
Okay.
All right.
Are there questions or comments on the new amendment proposed?
Oh, it doesn't, you seconded it.
I did. All right, if there aren't any questions or comments, then we will call for another roll call vote on the new amendment.
All right. Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
No.
Counselor Deckard,
No.
Counselor Crossley,
No.
Counselor McKim,
No.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson.
Yes.
Motion still failed, 3-4.
Hey,
I
thanks.
call a question on the original motion.
Well, we would need to take
Yeah,
public comment.
we have to take comment.
I thought you were through with them.
We haven't taken public comment yet.
Correct. So, I haven't had taken your comments on the original either. So are there any further comments on the motion, which is exactly the same as it was last week now? So we're, unless someone proposes another change. Yes.
I'm just going to say, one of the things that I think we've realized in this sort of post-pandemic economy is the degree to which many broadly construed essential positions are underpaid. But I think in particular, I think society has broadly recognized that a lot of public safety positions have been really dramatically underpaid. I mean, to the point where it almost seems kind of absurd that a police officer is paid a certain amount when, somebody in even a low-level tech job, for example, starts at twice that. And I guess that doesn't bother me if we are a few percentage points ahead of our benchmark counties rather than exactly at where our benchmark counties are. I think that's okay. The system is sort of self-balancing over time. We'll have to continue to make salary decisions next year and the next year and everything. And so I think given where what we're facing right now, and I'm okay. I'm supportive of the motion as originally introduced.
Other comments? No?
Nope.
Nope. Well, I agree with you. I'm comfortable with being a few percentage points above the median or the average, average comparison counties as well. That certainly wasn't my objection.
Right.
If there are no more comments, then we will open for public comment. We already have a hand raised on Zoom. If you're in the room and would like to make public comment, you can come to the podium. If you will limit to 3 minutes, if that's okay. And we'll go ahead and get started. Since we have someone on Zoom with the hand raised, could we go ahead and allow them to speak?
Hello?
Hello.
Yes. So I did make some comments about your decision.
Could you state your name for the record, please?
Anthony Hibbert.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So you're worried about overtime, correct? For the fiscal. portion.
Yeah, that's a one part of the concern.
Okay. So my thing is now we're going to have a harder time not getting people hired with this proposal being denied. So if it would have been approved, you would have spent less in overtime. So now we're going to spend a lot more in overtime because we have to make the jail run and operate 24/7. We are not always volunteered for overtime. It is mandatory and ordered. Secondly, it's okay for the county commissioners to get a 23% raise. And you think that's fair to every county employee, not just the jail. That is unfair. You say you understand us and get our situation, but you don't. You're not in there. My officers and I do not get every holiday off, do not get every weekend off with our families. Yes, we signed up for this job. But when days are getting denied for holidays and vacation days, that's not right. You guys want to go green with solar panels? Solar panels alone probably could have helped cover this budget. Again, you guys say you care and you understand, but deep down, you do not. The only people that do understand are those that approved this. I am asking you to please reconsider the situation. We are hurting. We're all worried about our families getting hurt. Have you ever considered a lawsuit by an inmate due to being short-staffed in your fiscal matters? Have you ever considered a lawsuit by a correctional officer being hurt or injured and constantly worrying about their families, their spouse, their kids being injured? I myself was injured about a month ago. Had another officer that was just injured a few weeks ago. Just had another officer injured this week. Do you guys take that into consideration? Those that denied this proposal?
Thank you for your comment. Are there other members of the public here in the room who would like to comment? If not, I'll move to the next person online. All right. Could you please allow Eric Spoonmore to speak?
Hello, Council. Eric Spoonmore, Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce. Appreciate all of the discourse and discussion tonight. I know these are tough decisions and tough deliberations to make. I do want to say that the Chamber and I certainly appreciate your support for our public safety professionals, our deputies, our jailers. These positions are absolutely critical to the welfare and the vitality of our businesses here in Monroe County. And just encourage you to support the original motion that's on the floor. And again, appreciate everything that you do as you talk through these very complex, complicated decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go ahead to the next person online. Hello? Hi, do you have a comment? You're muted. And now you've disappeared. He disappeared. Okay. Keep an eye out just in case he comes back. Are there any public comments in the room? And now we have another one online. Okay.
Hi,
Hello.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Jessica, and I just wanted to hop on here and encourage a full vote of yes in regards to the first motion. I support not only our deputies, but also our correctional staff. I think the officer that spoke earlier said it very, very well, that unless you are a member of that community or have worked in the jail, then it's really hard to understand the daily stressors that come with that type of job. I worked in the jail for several years, and the dedication of the jail correctional staff is immense, and it's a very stressful environment to be in. How the officers are institutionalized themselves is tremendous, and it's a lot of stress to put on them. So I just want to urge everybody to vote yes on this, and thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments either online or in the room? All right, I see no more public comments. So we will have a roll call vote, please.
This is a roll call vote on the original motion.
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
No.
Counselor Hogg.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-1.
Thank you. Phew, that brings us to,
B.
there's a B.
There's a B,
There's a B.
but it's not this issue.
It's not related.
This is something boring. Yes. Council,
Yeah.
I move to open for discussion and review the voter registration payment settlement agreement.
Second.
And it needs to say.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to ask for unanimous consent to forward this to the Board of Commissioners for approval. Are there any objections? All right. Yeah,
You want me to explain the settlement agreement?
I suppose.
Or share my screen? So the agreement is to pay the clerk the voter registration per diem in the same amount that we agreed, or the council agreed for this year, which was $6.50 per day. So the agreement is in total for a payment of $9,249.50. That breaks down to $6.50 per day for 246 days for 2017, 18, 19, 20, and 21. And 2016 would be prorated to the date that our clerk was caucused in. This agreement also includes a release of claims so that if it is signed, it agrees that no further action will be taken in regards to voter registration per diem. And if you approve this, then I will add it to the commissioner's agenda for their approval. I think the main question for council consideration is what line this gets paid out of.
So my immediate thought to your question is that it would be paid out of the election fund.
I agree.
That, okay. So with that understanding, do we have unanimous consent to forward this along to the commissioners? Great. Okay.
So I will get it on the commissioner's agenda the 14th.
That sounds great. Thank you for working on that for us. Where are we? We're at 15. Thank you.
Council, I move to approve the summary minutes of October 25th, 2022 work session and November 15th, 2022 regular session as presented.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments or changes or edits? Great. Any public comments? Don't see any. Can we have a voice? That's what that, yes, a voice vote. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passing. And now we have council comments. Does anyone have any council comments before we move to adjournment? Yes.
I have more good news.
So Indiana University alumna Doris L. Pryor made history on Monday when the U.S. Senate confirmed her appointment to the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. I just wanted to say, go IU, and congratulations to Justice Pryor.
Excellent. Any other council comments for today? Okay, duly noted.
It's my anniversary.
Oh my gosh, happy anniversary, Jenna.
Sorry, dinner because of
But it's a good,
doing her job.
I did my job, so
Yep.
not complaining, just for the record, nobody sent me hate.
Oh, I didn't.
All right, with that, we will, yeah, I'm sorry. No, okay, with that, we will adjourn. Thank you.